I want to know if you share a memory that I have as a child. Do you remember when you were younger and a dandelion would sway towards you? Whenever that happened, there was always someone that reminded us that if you took a deep breath, made a wish, and blew onto it, the wish that you made would come true, as the seeds of the dandelion would scatter all around. As romanticized as that may now sound to you, it was a sign of more innocent and hopeful days. A giddy outlook on life based on uninhibited promise. As a child, I always looked up to people that had influence. Athletes, CEOs, and anybody in positions of power. I wanted to be just like them. The leaders. The people that were so sure of themselves that nothing could faze them. But as I grew older, I realized that there's a thin line between assuring others and being self-assured. This lesson came to me when I was one day sitting at my desk at work. It was 4 a.m. on a Friday afternoon. I was just finishing up a report when I noticed a man tumble through the door. He was wearing a high-end suit, golden cuffs, and his hair was slicked back and shiny. He tumbled through the door like an octopus, and he paced back and forth, trying to find water. As I sat there in my desk, the man caught me in the corner of his eyes and asked me, "Do you think my suit looks okay? I feel like a fraud sometimes with how I dress." This man was the CEO of the company that took up this whole building that I was in. And he was asking me, a 19-year-old kid who was 3 months into the job, whether he looked okay before attending a board meeting with investors. By appearance, he was the boss, a person of power and admiration. But by his thoughts at the time, he had areas where he was unsure of himself. He used the word fraud, and that was the word that kept ringing through my head. After much research, I now realize what that feeling was. That feeling is called the imposter syndrome. Let's talk about it. No matter if you're a CEO or an elite athlete, the imposter syndrome affects everyone, no matter how much you achieve. Now, I wanted to know how such established individuals could even feel this way. So I decided to do a very small experiment. I rounded up 6 people I knew, 3 people, all in the age group of 12 to 15, and the other 3 people included a CEO, founder, and entrepreneur that I knew from my LinkedIn networks over the years. Next, I scheduled a Zoom call with each of them separately and asked if I could get their authentic reactions to a statement that I want to tell them. I said to each of them 4 words. You are a fraud. What followed me saying this confronting statement may surprise you. When I said these words to the 3 young people, I received a grimace, what do you mean? I haven't done anything. And no, I'm not. Conversely, when I said the statement to the industry leaders, who are obviously much older and experienced into their lives, I received yeah, I do feel that way sometimes. People might think that, yeah. And I wouldn't say that, but I sure do feel that way occasionally. Surprised? Basically, I say it to a trio of young people and a trio of highly recognized industry leaders that they were frauds. A very negative term about not being good enough and deceptive. And that is how they reacted. Despite all the accolades the industry leaders had, their imposter syndrome made my statement navigate all the way throughout their overarching and prolific lives and to focus solely on those negative feelings of not being good enough, of feeling like a fraud, feeling like an imposter. I knew of this feeling all too well, and only now do I realize what it's called. Feeling like an imposter. As a first-generation migrant, any assumption that I've always been composed in my own skin is a far-fetched rhetoric. This idea of being an imposter fazed me for many years of my life, and once I was able to identify why I felt this way, I wanted to overcome it. I didn't want to live my entire life with this empty feeling, this shallow feeling of not wanting to be in my own body. So, after a lot of reading, self-reflection, and just talking to a lot of people, here are 3 practical steps that I took to overcome the imposter syndrome, and in many ways, feel more secure and good about myself. Number 1, your thoughts aren't facts. There's an analogy that many psychologists use for their patients, and it's a traffic analogy. Picture yourself walking on a footpath surrounded by traffic on both ends. Some cars are moving fast and some are making a lot of noise. The path you're walking on is leading to where you want to be. You know this. You can choose to get into any of the cars that are passing by because, again, they're making a lot of noise and it's distracting you from focusing on walking. But you can let these cars pass and know that they don't matter because you know the path that you're on and you've done enough to walk this specific path. Any thought of feeling worthless, insecure, or like a fraud are just thoughts. We get millions of thoughts each day in our brains, like cars in traffic. That's because we're human. They're not all real. You don't have to believe all of them. The second tip is positive self-talk. And this is one that changed my thinking forever, especially in the last 2 years. Now, we all know it's difficult to be positive in a time of adversity. It's easy to be negative and lie in bed all day, scrolling through social media all day, feeling like an imposter and not being good enough. We've all been there. But that won't get us anywhere if we don't take action. And that's where positive self-talk comes from. Here's a practice you can do right now. Take a pen and paper and think back to everything you have done and what got you there. Remind yourself of all the times where you have said, I don't know how I'll ever do this. This is too painful. I don't know how I'll get out of this. Remember those moments of anguish and hurt. And after you write that, underneath all of that, write today's date. Look at the date today and realize that you're still here and you've progressed. That's positive self-talk. Reinforcing the positive thoughts over and over again over any negativity that may compound. And finally, the third lesson is embrace and acknowledge how you're feeling. Self-doubt comes from a place. We may have had a bad experience as a child, or we may have been discriminated by someone in our adulthood. And that's made you feel this way no matter how much you accomplish. You always feel like there's something to prove, not only to yourself, to certain people. But it's okay to feel this way. One rule that I have implemented into my life is that if I ever feel a certain way, or I'm just disappointed about an outcome, I give myself 5 minutes to go through all the emotions. Sadness, disappointment, anger, hopelessness, regret, you name it. I give myself permission for those 5 minutes to experience what I feel. But once that time is up, I tell myself, hey, I've given you the time and support to express those things. Now it's time to be resilient. Even if it's small steps to rebuild or bounce back, take that step. We only feel like a fraud or not being good enough if we let ourselves be overwhelmed with emotions. deal with those emotions, but also deal with jumping back and starting again. It won't be easy, but it's progress. Because you matter, and you matter to the people around you. As my favorite author James Clear said, it's the aggregation of marginal gains that counts. Getting better 1% every single day. Now, do I feel like a fraud sometimes? Absolutely. Does that CEO I met feel like a fraud sometimes? Absolutely. I still value and will always value leaders to be these extraordinary individuals, and they are. But what I realize is that no matter who you are, no matter what you've achieved, there is always a constant battle between your identity and how the world makes you feel. That's what makes us human. Being vulnerable is okay. It allows you to understand yourself more than you will ever understand yourself if you were very sure of yourself. It's a strength. Your thoughts aren't always facts. Give yourself the permission to go through the emotions, and most importantly, positive self-talk. And so, the next time you feel like a fraud, be hopeful that the dandelion will again sway towards you. Our reality is based on how we think about ourselves. Be a little kinder to yourself and realize that each and every one of us are just humans. We're trying to figure out ourselves and the world around us as we go. There's no manual, no matter how much we wish there was. It's just how we choose to see ourselves. Thank you.